Good morning. In this lecture series, we see about what are the different types of manufacturing process. Okay, the first of all, we have to discuss the most trendiest method is called as a casting. One of the casting method, it is called as a sand casting method. Okay, so here we have to discussing how is the sand casting is working. What are the term? What are the what is it called as? What are the instrument we have to carrying for this casting process? Okay, let's see on one by one. The first of all, we see about what is the introduction. So first of all, what is the meaning of sand casting? Okay, the sand casting is like a mostly widely process using in a casting process and also suitable for the expandable sand molding and for the complex metal parts also. Okay, it can be made a metal of the any alloy. So the sand casting process, what are the steps we have to carry out? First of all, we have to using of furnace and the metal and the patterns and the sand molding. Okay. So here the furnace is main important to while using for this case, we have to melting the metal. Okay. That is a primary usage for furnace. Okay. And also the metal we have to using the aluminum, for example, a different types of grade of material, we have to use in the furnace, we melting and mold into the certain shape. So the pattern we have to what desire say we want to. Okay. That shape we have to assign as a pattern and we have to molten the sand mold. Okay, so for then after that, after this process, okay, the metal is melted into the furnace and the ladle is poured into the cavity of the sand model, so which is the formed by the pattern. Okay, so by using of furnace we have to melt the metal and is pour into the cavity of the sand mold. Okay, then is form as a pattern. The sand mold is along this parting line, that is a solidifying casting can be removed. So these are the simple process to understanding purpose. So here there is a molten metal is here. There is a ladle. Okay. So the molten metal can be melted by using of furnace. Okay. That we have to making the parting line and pouring into the molten metal. And also the sand mold can be separating the upper part and lower part. We have to separating the parting line. Okay. So we want to decide to, I want to pattern is like a gear shape, means if you have a pattern is like a impress on creating on the, it's like a gear shape on the sand mold. Okay. Once your pattern is removed, after that you have to pour in the material. Okay. So you have to decide the quantity of molten metal and it can be filled into the molten, there is a pattern areas. Okay. So here the simple understanding here is, so these are the what is called, these are the process we have to carry for the sand casting. So then how could you make us a mold? Okay, so mold is nothing but it's like a physical model of casting using the mold. Okay, when is the pattern is withdrawn, okay, is a impulse is provided in the mold cavity. So this cavity is filled with the metal to become a casting. Okay, so I already told it's like the which pattern you want. Okay, so that pattern you have to impress. There will be for form on the molded cavity. Then cavity can be filled with the metal, become a casting. So these are the important terms we have to using for the sand casting process. So here there is a open riser and a pouring basin, okay, and a vent. Okay, so what is the purpose of open riser and pouring the basin means? So the boring basin is a molten metal can be filled through the boring basin, and also if you have how many quantity of casting will can we want. Okay, so once we open rise will be seen the casting mold. Okay, so we stop to boring the material into the boring holes. Okay, so what is the purpose of vent? Okay, the vent of main purpose is we have to remove the air bubbles in the patterns. Okay, so then we have to make the pattern. Okay, so pattern will be there in a upper mold and a lower mold, that is a cope and drag. Okay, so the cope and drag will be we have find out the course, and then molten metal is cavity can be poured into the here area. So here runway is we have to form, that is the purpose of runway is the pouring material it can be passes through the where is the pattern is placed. Okay, that is can be the molten metal is can be go inside the up to the pattern, and we can fill the open riser. So once the pattern after solidifying this case, okay, so we have to remove the pattern, what the pattern we want to, that pattern can be extracted. Okay, then so here there is a parting line is there, that is a parting line is can be segregated the cope and drag. Okay, and also the molding sand is can be fixed at the center, the facing sand and the core and boring basins. So these are the important terminology we have to using for the casting process. Okay. Yes. So, and also in addition that spare runner and the gateway and the riser. So the runner is the main purpose. We already told that that is a the casting can be processed through this area, and the gate is can be using for the we want to there's like a pouring materials can be filled by the there's a gateway, and the riser we have to using for the if either we want to fill the amount of casting we wanted. Okay, so that is the main terminology we have to using for the sand casting process. Okay. So what are the steps we have to making for the sand casting process? Okay. So the first of all, the pattern making and the core making, molding, melting and pouring, and finally we have to make as a cleaning process. Okay, so these are the steps we have to carry for the sand casting process. Okay, so these are the some important properties of the mold sanding. So what is the mold sanding is like a ability of the mold sanding withstand the high temperature without breaking down to fusing. So degree of refractoriness depends upon the silicon dioxide, the content, and the shaping of the gain shape of the particle. And also to enhance the property, and sand should be as a lower percentage of lime and manganese and alkane and oxide of the metals. The refractoriness is measured by the sinter pointing rather than its melting point. Thank you.